I just want to say welcome to everyone. It is that most wonderful time of the year, New Hampshire Gives season. And I am so happy to see all the faces here. I see some old pals and some new faces. And I think whether this is your first New Hampshire Gives or your seventh, you are going to get a lot out of today's presentation. We would love it if you would take a moment to use the chat to tell us who you are, what organization you're representing today, how many years you've been a part of New Hampshire Gives, anything that you want to share. And while you're doing that, I am going to get to the first order of business, which is to introduce Kathy Sherling. Kathy is the SVP Marketing and Communication Services Director at People's United Bank. Kathy, that's a mouthful. People's has been the training Titan sponsor of New Hampshire Gives since 2018, and they have always placed a great value on these educational opportunities that this initiative provides. So Kathy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah, and thanks for having us. It's great to be here today as a representative of People's United Bank. I've been with the company for more than 30 years and very proud of the work that we do throughout our community. We're proud to be a partner with New Hampshire Gives. They do amazing work. I hope that you guys enjoy the session today and take back a lot of great tips to your organizations. Thank you all for all that you do throughout our community. And again, thanks for having us today.
Thanks, Kathy. One of the things that I love the most about New Hampshire Gives is having the support of community partners like People's. It makes it so much more fun. Today, I am so delighted to welcome two of the people who continue to give generously of their time and expertise to make New Hampshire Gives successful. Mary Jo Brown of Brown & Company stepped in 2020 and helped New Hampshire Gives grow exponentially. You would be hard pressed to find someone who is more passionate about New Hampshire Gives than Mary Jo. Scott Spradling of the Spradling Group became involved last year in an advisory role and then found himself co-hosting the New Hampshire Gives live stream with Greg Kretschmar. This year, he's joined Mary Jo and Kristen Oliveri from the Charitable Foundation as my partners in the overall planning for New Hampshire Gives. This initiative would not be possible at this scale without these people. Welcome, Scott and Mary Jo, and you guys can take it away.
So good morning, everyone. Mary Jo and I are thrilled to take a few minutes of everybody's time this morning and try to help you help all of us with this process of raising awareness about New Hampshire Gives, helping to elevate all of you as individual nonprofits, but also as a group. One of the wonderful real benefits of this entire process is that New Hampshire Gives has exploded onto the scene over the last few years and has become something of a pretty high profile exercise. So we're basing this entire conversation and hopefully these tips and ways to be sort of user-friendly in raising the awareness, getting more eyes on the event itself, and then getting more dollars in your bank accounts. We're hoping that through these tips through the course of this morning and some easy steps, things to think about, help you through this process, but maybe from Mary Jo's and my perspective, even helps you through long-term ideas and goals of just how to raise awareness in a nonprofit world in a state where people are very generous, but there's a lot going on. So it can be sometimes hard to get up above the noise level. So with that, let me just stop for a second and let Mary Jo say hi, and then we'll jump right in.
So hello, everyone. And as Deborah said, I'm a huge New Hampshire Gives advocate. I'm all about going green, as Scott said, co-branding with the New Hampshire Gives brand to bring in more dollars. And I want you all to know I dress the part. I have the full color palette I'm wearing today, not only the green, but I just want you to know I also have the yellow. And as we figure out who's actually sharing the presentation, let me know if I'm doing that, Scott is doing that, or Deborah's doing that. There are a few opening pages that did summarize what both Scott and I are covering together.
You bet. How about if I just jump in and share that for you?
Awesome.
Let me just get it. Give me 2 seconds.
I like that when Scott and I were preparing for this presentation, we ended up breaking it into 2 basic parts, both words, message, and then pictures or visuals for me. So if you go to the second page, there's Scott, there's Mary Jo, part 1, part 2. And as Scott was mentioning, He's covering a lot of general communications tips, importantly, message creation. I love the formula he has for that. It's amazing. We all know Scott is a superhero when it comes to media connection, so he's going to give you great tips on that. And then when it's handed over to me, we'll cover image development. So I'm loving the visuals and photography selection, how to leverage the New Hampshire Give brand, and including the toolkit review. We are planning on not talking the entire time. We'll take about 10 to 20 minutes each, probably more like 15, so that we can each get through our presentations and have questions from you.
Thank you, Mary Jo. So let me jump in. I'll do my stuff first. When Mary Jo and I were thinking through this exercise to talk to all of you, we wanted to sort of fairly recognize that some of you have been doing this for a long time and are kind of old hat at the marketing, media outreach, PR, social media thing. Others maybe not as comfortable. So I wanted to start very basically with the sort of the lay of the landscape. I want by the time we're done with this for you to feel like you have some ideas and tools on not only how to get your message out, but what to say and how to do it. One of the most important questions to answer is why would we be doing this? And I think there are a number of different basic reasons why. First and foremost, I'm a big believer in making hay when the sun is shining and reaching out and increasing your contact list with local media and folks that are in your backyard, whether that's the statewide media, the Union Leader or Channel 9, or some of the maybe weekly articles or smaller newspapers or radio stations in your backyard where they've got a geographic connection to you. Reach out to them, connect with them, and tell them who you are and what you do. And I'm going to talk elevator speech in just a second. But I want to emphasize the fact that especially because of social media, and we know this intrinsically now from our own experience in life, social media has connected us in ways and immediate ways that is completely different than what it used to be 10, 20 years ago. So it means that you have to have a focus on what's going on. It takes a little bit of extra to garner the attention. You have to be out there. And the bottom line from the media's perspective is there are so many voices and so many options. It's truly the best and clearest and in most cases, simplest communicators who end up getting their attention. Before I move on with more reasons of why this is an important exercise to just get good at, I want to plant a seed for all of you so that if you don't hear anything else that I say through the course of this morning, I want you to remember this one thing. I would love for all of you to do this one exercise in your own time, simple exercise of what I call creating your elevator pitch. It's really just a 4-step, very simple exercise. If you were ever stopped on the street cold and said, oh, hey, Rick Bernard from BCNH. So who are you and what do you do? You want to be able to, at any given time, and I'm sorry if this feels like some kind of frat hazing exercise, but it's not. It's really just meant to be okay, it's my elevator pitch time. You only have a few moments. How do you hit them between the eyes? So you introduce yourself and the name of your organization, a very quick description of what your organization does, not a life story, not the full mission that might be on your website, but who are you? What do you do? And who are the folks that you serve and in what capacity? Then you can step right into, especially for the New Hampshire Gives exercise, why do you need the support? People are more likely to give and engage if they know why they're giving and engaging. Give us some reasoning about why you need this extra support beyond maybe just the, boy, we all need money. It's tough times right now. Give some specificity about what the money is going to be used for, and you'll find that people make an easier connection. And then the last thing is, whenever you have the opportunity for an open mic, take that moment to tell a very quick, and I mean that, a very quick story of impact, an example of someone or something that you've helped, a success story, a nice little put a face on the example of who you are type of story that's only maybe a minute long, something super quick, but that it connects the dots between the person you're talking to and the cause that you care so much about. You do that, and I guarantee that the awareness about what you're up to will increase, but you're also making it easy and user-friendly for either donors or in some cases, the media. So let's talk a little bit more about why this is an important exercise for branding. Whenever you see the golden arches, we all know McDonald's, whether we eat there or not anymore, we certainly know who they are and what the logo is all about. New Hampshire Gives over the last number of years has elevated itself to a very successful and high awareness so that that green banner and Mary Jo's beautiful green and yellow that you can see on your screen right now, those colors, that color scheme, it now triggers that memory of, oh yeah, Must be early summer, must be time for New Hampshire Gives. This is a cool thing, whether it's a cause-oriented give, hey, I want to be able to help this nonprofit, or I want to be part of something that a lot of people are doing because we're raising record numbers of dollars in one day. That brand for New Hampshire Gives is really high profile now. It's great to associate with it. Also, basic communications, what I said before, all traditions and communications have changed. When I was back in a newsroom years ago, the social media environment almost didn't exist. As I was leaving, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and things like that were just starting to hit their stride. Now it's where so many people get their information, their news, and formulate their opinions that you have to be a part of it. And the difference between that and the days of old with communications is it happens in real time. And like it says at the bottom, that's a two-way dialogue. You have to be prepared to not just put stuff out there, but listen and look for some of the responses, because those connections are now where the rubber meets the road. You make those connections, you make people feel like they're being heard, or their ideas are being shared, or you just care about the same things. And the connection ends up leading to successful relationships. And in this particular case for this exercise, fundraising. Now, public relations, another piece. You can't leave it to chance anymore because we're all so connected. My experience has been that if you're not talking about what you're doing, if you're not putting your message out there in an effective, simple, and clean manner, other people might try to do that for you. And I'm sure we all know people in our lives and in the hardworking nonprofit worlds where you've got someone that you work really closely with who is just all heart. He or she works so hard, they do so well, but you would never put them in front of a microphone because you just don't know what's going to come out of their mouths. And more likely than not, it ain't going to be pretty. You don't want the wrong people carrying your message for you. Unfortunately, social media and these little toys, yeah, they make it really easy for any Tom, Dick, and Harry to step up and think that they're an expert on something. Don't let people speak for you. Manage your own public relations, be in charge of this, and make sure you're the master of your own message. So I've talked about the social media aspect, but when you're dealing with the media itself, and again, I just want you to have this background, because whether you do this for New Hampshire Gives or you do this in your own world to just try to raise the awareness of your cause and your nonprofit, you basically have two options when you're stepping out of your own comfort zone and into the world of earned media. Free publicity, coverage of what you're doing, an event, who you are, something special. You have two options. It's traditional media, radio, TV, print, and then social media, which has become sort of the new way of communicating. In social media, you kind of want to keep it simple. You come up with what you want to say. You have to remember who it is that you're talking to and what your message goals are. Maybe sometimes you're just trying to raise awareness about a specific cause and let more people know what it is you're doing in a general sense. Maybe in this particular case with New Hampshire Gives, your message goals is to dial for dollars. You want as many people that are connected to you as possible to know about this fundraiser, because it's a, hey, let's all participate, give me your money kind of a situation. Ultimately, that's your goal. It's not what you're going to say unless you're overly blunt, but you're going to essentially have that as your goal. And then who is your audience backing up to that question? That's a really important thing, because sometimes your audience is just the people of New Hampshire, as broad a group as humanly possible. Sometimes your audience is a very specific group of people. Maybe it's the moms of the household that are running the show. Maybe sometimes it's teachers. Perhaps it's community leaders. Maybe it's lawmakers. What your audience target is should help dictate what it is that you want to say. So you may be sitting there thinking, okay, Scott, that's all well and good, but how do I even get started? Well, here's a couple of ways that maybe you can help frame your message in getting started with pushing your messages out on social media to your general audience, or trying to figure out how to pitch something to the media so that maybe you get some coverage. So where do you begin? I always want you to start with something special and unique. Unique is really the key here. The fact that there are several dozen of you on this call right now who have all one thing in common as nonprofits, you're paying it forward for the betterment of New Hampshire. And I can't thank you enough for it. It's wonderful what you do. It's one of the reasons why I love New Hampshire, because we are sort of an all in this nonprofit driven kind of volunteer community state. It's beautiful, but think of it from the perspective of your audience, whether it's just a user on social media or whether it's the one guy in the one TV station in New Hampshire who gets all of your messages at once, and it feels like he's drinking from the fire hose. So if you want to step out from the crowd, You have to focus on what's unique to what it is that you do and how you do it. So start with what's different. And I don't mean a little bit different. I mean, what's different about what you do and how you do it? Maybe it's the population that's served. Maybe it's the way in which you do it. Maybe it's the people behind the scenes. Maybe it's a bunch of those things, but start with that something that's special. Secondly, and to the point of the elevator pitch, what would you say if you get stopped while you're trying to pick out your favorite watermelon for 4th of July and be like, hey, what is it that you do again? Oh, well, hey, let me tell you all about what I'm up to. What would you say in the produce aisle is a great place to start framing your message for what you would want to say to the media and to folks on social media? That's the easiest thing. You can keep it simple. You want to have discipline in your message. This is not War and Peace. You don't want to take forever and ever and ever to tell a story because none of us are that interesting. Secondly, you want to be creative with your usage. And what I mean by that is, what do you do that is one of those things that most people university be like, huh, that's really interesting, or huh, that's really cool. Maybe you work with horses. That to me is interesting right out of the gate. No pun intended. Right out of the barn, gate, barn. You know what I mean? The bottom line is you pick those things that are unique to what it is that you're doing that might have someone in the produce aisle that you haven't seen in a few months say, huh, that's really interesting that you're doing that. That's very cool. That's a wonderful starting point for your basic messaging for introducing, reintroducing, or pitching yourself to the public or to the media. Now that's supposed to say press releases. S releases, I have no idea what that means. So my apologies for the graphic, but the bottom line is if you are going to do any kind of a press release as a part of this New Hampshire Gives exercise, or more generally, if you're going to just do this in interacting with the media to hope that you can broaden the awareness of who you are and what you're doing and when you're doing it, here's just a few tips right out of the gate. Don't bury your lead. Whatever you're getting to, get right to it. You do not have the luxury of working up to a big finish and ta-da, as your final landing on a 4-page press release after 2,000 words. No, nope. You want to get it out of your headline and into your first 2 or 3 sentences of your press release, because if you don't have a newsroom person hooked by then, it's going into the old circular file, if you know what I mean. So spit it out quickly. Go big or go home. Make your announcement bold and with full enthusiasm about what you're up to right away. Again, any press release that's longer than 2 pages is already too long. You need to make sure that you get right to the bread and butter. Answer who, what, when, where, and why. And yes, this feels a lot like kindergarten. My apologies, but those were really good lessons. We might as well adopt them as adults, right? Answer the 5 questions, and maybe the 6th is how. Get that right there on the front page. Bang it out and be done with it. And remember that any media person in any newsroom in New Hampshire is getting dozens upon dozens of releases every single day. So make sure yours is new, it's happening now, and it's different. And please, for the love of Pete, don't ever send a press release about something that you did last week, because I guarantee you it won't get coverage. If it's not happening or about to happen, a press release into a newsroom is not going to do you any good. Awards may be a rare difference, something like that. But if it's something that's an event, nobody's going to cover an event after the fact. There's too much other competition for events that are happening. People want to be, think of it surfing. You don't chase the wave after it's past your board. You have to start paddling before the wave gets rolling behind you and then let it push you to shore. That's how you deliver a press release. Now let's talk a little bit about the basics of just your communication. I'm almost done. I keep in mind, again, to the elevator speech, whether you're doing this to a donor, whether you're talking to a reporter, whether you're just talking to the public, the basics about your message for what you're trying to do, especially in this realm of a whole bunch of us are doing New Hampshire Gives together. You just have to do a little best preparation. Channel your inner boy and Girl Scout and think of it this way. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. Give me 3 major points about what it is that you do or how you do it, and then stop. Know your messages before the interview. So if you know you're going to be talking to a reporter, if you know you're going to be talking to a donor, if you know you're going to be talking to Greg and me on the live stream in a couple of months with New Hampshire Gives, practice your message a little bit. Remember, you're the expert in what it is that you do. We don't know what you do every day. So you can have some confidence and enthusiasm that this is what you do. Bring it. Have some enthusiasm. Be happy about it. This is all good news stuff. We're not, we're not announcing an IRS tax audit here. We're talking about fun things. Just remember that the dance, when it comes to earned media, like a live stream with New Hampshire Gives, or dealing with reporters, or dealing with social media folks, you don't fully have control over a message that you haven't authored and put out there yourselves. So that's why, if there's any reason to stay disciplined in your message, keep it simple, keep it short, keep it light, focus on new and different and unique. You do that, and you've made the reporters or social media person's job a lot easier, and you've probably helped make your connections. So let's say you've had all this great success. You follow all these steps, you're doing great, or you've already been doing it, but you want to polish just a little bit more the electronic part of the interviews, which I understand can be a little bit of like trapeze without a net. Here are a few basic tips for electronic interviews where it's soundbite driven kind of world, right? And quite frankly, even interviews with print reporters, it may not be live broadcast where you hear and see yourself, but they're still working with quick clips and sound bites. You could talk to a reporter for 10 minutes, and then you look at the final piece and it's like maybe 30 words tops scattered through the article. It's not much. All the more reason to stay laser focused on who you are, what you do, and the point you want people to know. So think about a sentence that's 7 to 10 seconds long. In an electronic world, that is your bread and butter length of your statement. I know that's not much, but I worked for 15 years in radio and TV. I said a whole lot of stupid things in 7 to 10 seconds. I also every now and again said something intelligent. So I focus on the intelligent part, right? 7 to 10 seconds. Stick with that. Know your soundbite before you're asked. Think through. Take 5 minutes and think through. All right, what are they going to ask me? They're going to ask me what I do, how I do it, what's unique and special. Have your answers before you're asked the question. That little mental exercise of preparation can save you a lot. You practice that soundbite. And if you really have something that you want people to really focus on, then serve it up on a platter. Hey, what's really important to remember about this topic is X. Give examples. Tell stories. Put your nonprofit in the perspective of the people or communities or populations that you serve. It's easy to talk about a what. It's not as easy sometimes to talk about a who, and to have a little brief example story of a life that's been altered for the better because of what it is that you and your nonprofit are doing. I know that may sometimes feel self-serving. I know it might feel uncomfortable or narcissistic because you're servants of the public, and I love that. But in order to do this exercise well, you have to be your own good cheerleader. If you're not, people are going to find somebody else, because it's cheerleaders that tend to get good attention in the grand scheme of media coverage and social media. The ones who are effective, clean, clever messaging, short and simple, but enthusiastic, that's what gets it. And if you're ever doing a phone radio interview, do me a favor, stand up at your desk. I know your coworkers are going to throw paper at you and they're going to laugh at you, but I guarantee you that if you're sitting at your desk like we're all doing right now, and you're in the middle of an important conversation and, oh wait, my kid just texted me, hang on a second. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. It's that easy to kind of screw up the one opportunity to stick your landing, if you will. Stand up and put some physical space between you and anything that could serve as a distraction. And the last thought I have for you is just be prepared. Figure out who your voice is going to be before the phone rings from the media or from someone who wants to talk to you about your nonprofit. If you're dealing with the media and you're going with the back and forth, find out what it is that they're looking for and they need. For these conversations, we're not trading world secrets. This is not negotiating peace treaty between Ukraine and Russia. So let's take the pressure off of ourselves just a little bit and recognize that this is customer service. Find out what the reporter is looking for, maybe push them in the direction of what you really want them to talk about, and then figure out what their deadline is so that you are helping them help you. As a former reporter myself, I always went back to the people that I felt like were A, responsive quickly, because it's all same day stuff in news and journalism, but B, understood that I needed help and that they were willing to help me. Play the customer service role, and then so when the phone rings, just be ready for it. So I believe at this point now, I will stop talking and hand it over to the lovely and talented Mary Jo Brown for her section. And I'll control this for you, kiddo. You just tell me when you want me to change the page.
Awesome. Thank you. You know what I love about listening to you speak, in particular about framing the message and elevator pitch, is when you say it should be short, simple, and enthusiastic. You always do that. And you did that for New Hampshire Gives on air. I also love the joke that in New Hampshire, the elevator pitch, our buildings aren't very high, so the elevator pitch has to even be shorter. There's not enough time in the elevator. But thank you for all of that. And thank you so much for being such an incredible part of New Hampshire Gives.
Thanks, Mary
So-
Jo.
So first up, I'm going to make sure, as I am dressed in this green and yellow, to reinforce the power of the New Hampshire Gives brand and how to use it. If you go to the next page, what I want you to know is that New Hampshire Gives invests a lot of time and they invest money in raising awareness for this program. So they do radio and video, they do social media and advertising and media outreach. They've also created this amazing toolkit for you to use. I'm going to take a quick break here before I go through my materials that I created with the toolkit. So Deborah or Kelly can walk you through a few pieces and parts of this. So Deborah or Kelly, could you take a minute and do that? And then we'll go back to this.
Sure. The toolkit is something that we developed to make New Hampshire Gives as turnkey as possible for nonprofits that are coming on that don't have, the communications department is one person or is no person. So in the toolkit there are first and foremost there are graphics. So you don't have to have a graphic designer. You can just go and download these graphics and use them in your social media or in your any other things that you're doing, your emails. The little logos are there. Anybody can get a free Canva account. That's Canva. Kelly can put that link in the chat for you. That will help you edit your graphics really easily, and that is free for nonprofits. The other things that are in there are templates. So there's template emails for a bunch of different things. There's template emails that you can send to your supporters. I think there are some for your board. There are even some stewardship templates in there to thank your donors. And that's one of the things that we're really focusing on this year, is making sure that everybody knows that New Hampshire Gives doesn't end on June 8th. You need to continue to steward those donors throughout the year. There are sample social media text. So things that if you're like, I don't know what to say in my social media, you can go and look at these samples and grab some of those to get you started. The other thing that you can do, quite honestly, is we have a policy for New Hampshire Gives that has just, I don't know if it's a policy, but people share so freely. All of these organizations on here, so many of them have shared what they've done. Go on social media and look for the hashtag NHGives and look at what other people are doing. So those are some resources for you. I encourage you to go to the toolkit. It's in the main menu of the New Hampshire Gives site. So if you go to nhgives.org and hit the menu and choose Nonprofit Toolkit, there's all kinds of different sections that you can explore. There's so much there that I forget what's there, to be perfectly honest. Every year I'm surprised by how much we have.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you did one thing after the call today, I would highly recommend you at least explore the toolkit if you haven't already. I see that lots of the nonprofits, those that are attending today, have used the toolkit. What I would say is I'm going to continue to talk about why you should use it more. And this concept of co-branding your nonprofit with New Hampshire Gives, which has grown over the years, you should continue to focus on that. So here are some of the materials, pieces and parts that New Hampshire Gives automatically offers to you. It's some of the advertising that has been done. It's some of the posts that they have created. Hopefully you think of it as a sea of green and yellow that you can leverage into your nonprofit's brand to get greater exposure. I'm going to switch to the next page. I also want to tell you that New Hampshire Gives has been able to locate these two superstars who are willing to act as anchors for the event. So if New Hampshire Gives finds people like Scott and Greg to be spokespeople, You want to leverage the fact that they have found those people into your own efforts to advertise your fundraising on New Hampshire Gives. I guess in summary, before you go to the next page, I just want to say that there's a whole lot that New Hampshire Gives does to advertise and promote this day. I've seen nonprofits continuing to leverage it more, but they should continue to do that. I think over the years, we've seen more and more co-branding efforts, more and more green in the channels of all the nonprofits, but not enough yet. And I did a quick peek at those in attendance. So we're going to look at what some of you have done. Don't worry, it's not scary, I promise. And talk about ways to continue to improve co-branding with New Hampshire Gives. You want to go green. You want to hitch your nonprofit's brand to the brand of New Hampshire Gives, because it is a successful, unified, incredible giving day that gets exposure in the entire state. Early is the optimal time to promote New Hampshire Gives. And these questions are great. Deborah and Kelly and Scott and I will look forward to answering them. Now, in prepping for today, I need to tell you, I thought, well, what should I do? Should I just throw up some examples of those that are attending so we can check out what people have done in the past? And then I thought, well, I don't want to necessarily focus on one specific nonprofit, whether they've done a superstar job or need improvement. How about I create a new nonprofit? So we created a nonprofit. Yes, it's named Save the Kittens because I'm a big cat lady. Now, it was a quick logo development. Maybe the name should have been a little bit bigger for the logo, but there it is. So say you're savethekittens.org and you're about to enter into New Hampshire Gives Wonderful Giving Day. And you're thinking, I need to figure out how to promote myself. You follow Scott's feedback, you frame your message, you make sure it's concise, enthusiastic, you have it in sound bites, and you're ready to share it immediately. And then next up, you think, well, maybe I better pick some photography to accompany my posts online or my e-blast I'm going to send out. Image selection for New Hampshire Gives is incredibly important. You want to make sure the images are authentic. So really, your images stock is not as good as actual images. You want to make sure they're simple. So busy images don't work that well when they shrink online, when they're used on social media, when they're used in e-blasts, in any case, really. So try to keep a simple background, high quality. Watch out for low resolution, but our iPhones are great. If you're on a low budget, you can take photographs with your iPhone. Portrait mode is awesome if you're focusing on a person or an animal, and use that, that's fine. But make sure when you put it into the actual pieces, you're not lowering the resolution inadvertently. Compelling. So how can I make sure that my image is interesting to the audience? I love that Scott kept saying, think of your audience, think of your audience, think of your audience. So how can my image be compelling? And how can my image be positive? So enthusiasm, as Scott mentioned, is great. Sometimes the work we do is hard in the nonprofit arena, and we need to figure out how to showcase the clients that we work with or the work that we do in a way. And we have to ride the line of not being too, we don't want to make it too hard for people. That sounds a little goofy, but it's better to err on the side of being positive and hopeful with your imagery selection. So this is an interesting list, but I decided to do an example on the next page of how I might select an image for my Save the Kittens nonprofit that I'm going to be participating in New Hampshire Gives with. Here are some of the images that I found online, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I arrived at selecting number 5 in the end. Number 1 is cute, it's compelling, it's positive, it shows the subject, it speaks to my nonprofit, but boy, that pattern is pretty busy. And the black kitten in the back, the lighting isn't strong enough on that black kitten in the back, so we can't see that kitten's eyes. So I'm not going to use that one. Number 2, it's a little busy. Too many kittens, too overwhelming, too hard to look at visually. Number 3, maybe that's cute. The eyes are cute. I see the face. Could be an option. Number 4, okay. Is this cute, or does this kitten look like it's watching a horror movie? Maybe it looks like it's watching a horror movie. I'm going to skip that. Number 5, wow, beautiful eyes. They seem to look like they're goldish greenish. That might go with the color palette. Number 6, really cute, but the eyes are closed. Number 7, nice plain background, might have some room for a logo or type on it. Could be a good option. Number 8, also a good option, pretty eyes. Number 9, the eyes are open, kind of cute. Number 10, Number 10's even more green, but the cat's not looking at us. So which one would I pick? Well, hopefully as I walked through these images, you could get a sense of how you might craft image selection. I would always suggest that if you're taking a photograph of your subject, and again, professional photography is always the best. Even if you can get 1 or 2 or 3 images, you leverage the heck out of those consistently. But if you don't have professional images and you're using your iPhone to take them, find a plain background, make sure the background isn't too busy, use portrait mode on the iPhone, and then hit saturate on your iPhone. Just make sure it's color saturated. That magic wand on your iPhone is truly magic. Okay, so it saved the kittens. I now have my message because Scott helped me figure it out. I now have my photo. And why don't I try to put my post together? What I've noticed online a lot is that first, people tend to maybe forget about the New Hampshire Gives brand. So I see a lot of this. Maybe I forgot to mention New Hampshire Gives. Maybe I'm just saying, please give us donations. Doesn't show any connections to the New Hampshire Gives brand at all. On the next page, maybe I decide that I'm going to mention New Hampshire Gives. And because I'm Save the Kittens, I'm going to create some pause. I love this thematic, right? Really makes a lot of sense to connect it to the nonprofit that I am running. Absolutely fun idea. It's unfortunately really a bad idea because now what I've done is created an entirely new logo for New Hampshire Gives that doesn't connect over to the green and yellow and actual brand that I'm connected to. I've created a third logo, and yet I was well-intentioned. This example is born out of something I have seen. So please know that all of the examples I'm about to show come from real nonprofits that have developed ideas for New Hampshire Gives that maybe were well-intentioned, but don't quite hit the mark with syncing up with the New Hampshire Gives brand. So next up, what if I decide I'm going to go to that toolkit? Yes, I'm going to go to the toolkit, and I find this great graphic that's easy to download. I use Canva. I have that picture, and because I followed Scott's feedback, I have a sound bite, which is feed cute kittens, please. There we go. I've used my logo on the left, so we know it's my organization, and I've used the New Hampshire branding on the right. This is successful. I'd even say to you that if I want to emphasize my logo more on the next page, I could say, forget the photo altogether. I'm worried that my logo isn't showing up well enough. I'm going to run my logo and put it right next to the New Hampshire Gives brand. This is clear communications. This says, here I am, savethekittens.org. I am participating in New Hampshire Gives, this incredible, unified, successful effort in the state. Another option would be to run just the logo without any messaging it off to the side. And I see a lot of people doing this very successfully. And then on the next page, I would say, what if I'm super brave? Now, I want you all to think about this. This is appearing in my Facebook channel, right? Save the Kittens Facebook channel, or maybe it's in the newsletter, e-newsletter I'm going to send out to all my donors 2 weeks earlier to drum up interest and remind them that the date is happening. and by the way, excuse if some of the dates are wrong in these examples, you'll see a mix throughout it. But because this appears in my channel, they know that it's my Save the Kittens organization. I don't need to reinforce that on the image itself. It's in my feed. The copy I write above it will be all about my organization and the fact that gray kittens are the best, or whatever I want to say about it, my messaging that I've developed. On the next page, I'm going to show you two other options. This is also using the graphics that are in the toolkit. And I see this a lot, and nonprofits do this incredibly well. They simply use the knocked out white logo on a color photo or a black and white photo, and they use the font and the tagline, "Together We Give." The reason why this works so successfully, again, is because these are in my channel. I don't need to put my logo on it. The photograph is of the work that I do, and I've deliberately selected photos that have a lot of blank space or a nice empty space to put that logo on there or put type on there. I even picked the second one, the green one, because I thought it was super great that the kitten was looking at the logo. We rely, yes. So, and relying on shares, even if you rely on shares, you can still think about co-branding. So if you say, okay, I don't want to let go of my messaging, I really need our message there, it'll go out of our feed eventually. And I think that's really important. But I'd encourage you to not abandon thinking about co-branding with New Hampshire Gives, just focus on them being equally, show the relationship of the two working together. Now, prior to this, when I was able to see the attendee list, I looked through many examples of what you all have done, and I collected a few of those. And I'm going to walk through what I think is so great about all of the examples that we see here. So Wentworth Douglas Hospital, you did an amazing job of updating people on where you were at in fundraising. So we know it's good to emphasize the match. We know it creates a sense of urgency. And they've done a great job of using the New Hampshire Gives logo, which they've knocked out of their color palette. Good work. Hi, Molly. I also love that there is this graphic that shows this countdown, these numbers. I think it's incredible. So that sense of urgency, that sense of timeline, whether it's dollars like Wentworth did, or the dates, the time. I love tickers, and I love the ticker on the Give site, the New Hampshire Give site. Great job, good work. Next up, this black and white image, what I loved about it was that one, they used the New Hampshire Gives logo, and two, they created a sense of urgency. Over to the right, you see CASA has taken both the New Hampshire Gives logo and the CASA logo and put them together. And this gives you the opportunity to say, here we are CASA, and we are partnered with New Hampshire Gives in this effort. So successful co-branding. Mocha, you've got a lot of great images and you're leveraging them well. What I loved about what Mocha did was that, Moco, am I saying that right? I think I am. They're in the arts, so they're lucky that they have these super cool images, and in the theater, they've got this great lighting in the background. But I want you to see how they've successfully put their logo in the corner and also put New Hampshire Gives logo there. Now over to the right, they did do that in their feed. You can imagine there might even be, I saw some images for some of the nonprofits that are participating today who had t-shirts with their logos on it. Imagine if you were a nonprofit and you photographed someone in your t-shirt. Your logo's then in the photo, and there's less pressure for you to run your actual logo in the graphic. Now, I want to give, I'm on a smaller computer today, the next organization a great shout out. This is simply sharing the Justin Spencer video. And this is why it's important. He's obviously very popular. He has a strong following. You share what he has said, more people are interested in looking at your feed. It's really straightforward. I also want to applaud these folks to the right who did an incredible TikTok video. It was really fun. you might think about using the New Hampshire Gives colors or their brand colors, but they did a fun dance. It was positive, it was fun, it was concise. TikTok forces you to be concise in many ways. I'm going to go to the next page and look at more examples. So let's give all of these organizations some applause for using the toolkit. Someone asked how early you should be advertising for New Hampshire Gives. It's a drum roll, right? If you don't let people know it's going to happen, how will they show up for the day that it does happen? So yes, early, often, green, your brand, co-branding, more than you think you should share it. Way Station, Artisan, Hi Robin, Friends of Muskoma, all of these organizations did a great job of leveraging the toolkit and figuring out how to represent their brand off to the left. Artisan combined their logo and a statement with a beautiful image. It's what I call the height of the motion or height of movement. Often photographs, it's really important that we use them the right moment in a photograph, where there's a smile happening, where there's a clear motion. I'm not describing that well, but you can tell that Artisan has picked a good photo. Seacoast Science Center went a different way. They thought, well, we want to make sure that we show a lot of images and we can't pick one. What if we pick 4 and we put our logo in the middle? Great job. They've put their logo in the middle, but they still co-branded with New Hampshire Gives. Successful effort. CASA, a note on picking imagery. CASA does incredibly difficult and important work in advocating for children in court. Obviously, it might be tough to show a super smiley picture here, but you've got a child, they're in an environment, the adult is in the background. It gives it's clearly a mission moment image, and I like to describe images as being mission moments. CASA has the logo in the upper left, and they've co-branded. And then Touchstone Farm, great job. Maybe you also find one where the child is looking at you for that connection with the audience, but great job, beautiful image, great color, and it worked really well. Scott, I'll have you go to the next page. So in addition to using the save the date graphic out of the toolkit, I want to show you some other ways in which organizations have used the green. And I really want you to think of this sea of green, or what it communicates simply to see the green and yellow, and how quickly it cues to the audience that you are part of this successful day of giving. So CASA, new graphic, they've used green and yellow. I know immediately that it's part of New Hampshire Gives. Proudly participating in New Hampshire Gives, I think this was Seacoast Science Center. They used a separate graphic and used their own creativity to develop a different type of post, because they had this image that was long and skinny and they probably had to use it a different way. Artisan, really smart move. Artisan and other organizations, I saw them taking screen grabs of the actual, this is the actual site, right? You probably recognize that, folks. It's literally just a screen grab of the site and their profile. This shows people how much money they've raised, how many donors they have. This is a really good trick and super smart. You can see that might have been MoCo again, double your impact. This is again, creativity at its best, using part of something that was in the toolkit in a different way. CAP, great job. CASA, great job. Another save the date by Hope on Haven Hill, where they've put their logo in the lower left, a message. And then these 2 goofy pictures of me and my daughter, Haley, and me. You want to encourage people who donate to you to use this. I'm blanking on the name, and Deborah or Scott's going to remind me what this is called. Good heavens. frame on your profile picture. And then these New Hampshire we gave the unselfies, we used to call them. This is another way to show green and yellow in your feed. If I'm Save the Kittens and I get my donors to hold that sign I gave, it looks good for me. Now, remember, all of these incredible graphics and all of these videos are simply on New Hampshire Gives Facebook page the day of, and sharing them into your feed is easy, simple, and effective. A great way for you to continue to go green and leverage what's out there. Now, I've shared an awful lot of information. I know I went through that quickly, but I want to tell you all that you're doing a great job. Keep it up. We'll answer some of the questions, and go green. Scott and I wish you both the luck of the Irish. That was very goofy. Okay. I can't believe I just said that.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you, Scott. I did see a couple of questions that I wanted to bring up that have kind of passed by. When Scott was talking, somebody asked, where does using your website fit into this promotional scheme?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think most of us have now seen a sort of a shifting role of the use of websites, and I definitely want Mary Jo, who's an expert in this kind of information flow, to weigh in as well. But my sense of things has been now that you can drive people from this kind of campaign to your website to help tell your story. So there's definitely a huge role. I feel like today's website is now used to get all the information. Like if social media is the teaser, the tip of the iceberg of the entire piece of information you want to share, then you tease it and then drive them to the page that's relevant to whatever it is that you're saying. I think so many of you have a website page where, sure, you can just drive them by default to the home page, but maybe you want to take that one extra step and actually use the link that goes to what it is you're all about, or maybe a key story or example of the impact that you've made in somebody else's life that helps really facilitate the ask and facilitate momentum for the give. But if there's something where you've got the teaser and the headline in social media and you need to drive them to the full story, then that's absolutely useful. And the website is still your holding page and central sort of resource vault of information for all things that you do. Mary Jo?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges sometimes can be that if you're participating in New Hampshire Gives and your donors or those people you're trying to reach go to your website and they don't see any connection to New Hampshire Gives, that can be problematic. So what I'd make sure you do at a very base is connect that you're participating over to your homepage or a page on the site. So you, number one, need to make sure of that. Number two, I will say one thing I've noticed over the years is that there's often a lot of mission heavy language on the opening pages of websites. So if there's any way to not only showcase that you're participating in New Hampshire Gives, remember with the green and yellow, the brand, no new logos, the actual toolkit logos. Think of your mission in audience friendly language that is a short pitch that accompanies that. So I know I was being jokey about the We Save Kittens, but honestly, you can tell that that's a clear message. And if there was something unique, like Scott was saying, I would use the New Hampshire Gives logo on my website, use a matching photo that I'm going to use to push out New Hampshire Gives. So I'm going to pick my gray kitten, I think. And actually, what I didn't tell you about yet, which I would tell you in the proto style, Scott, is that I save kittens with crooked whiskers. So I'm going to put on my I'm actually going to make sure I find a picture of a kitten with a crooked whisker, or I'm going to make his whiskers crooked in that photo. And I'm going to write on my homepage for all those crooked, please join New Hampshire Gives while we raise money for crooked whiskered kittens. Anyway, keep that pithy language, put the New Hampshire Gives brand on your homepage. It'll benefit you.
Great, thanks. Another question was, how often should they be posting on social media about New Hampshire Gives? Is there a too much? Is there a, where do you find that perfect?
That's a really good question. I don't think there's any real specific science. This is sort of like your feelings about what you define as art. You kind of know it when you see it. Some of this is by feel. I would generally say that as we're having this conversation now in mid-March, I think of it as it's a little bit like turning on the faucet very slowly, right? You want a little bit of a slow, steady drip that maybe starts right around the 1st or 2nd of April. Don't do it on the 1st of April. Everybody think you're screwing with them. The start on the 2nd of April, and maybe maybe once a week through the course of April, just as a little bit of like a, hey, we're getting excited, we're getting ready. May is a little bit more, and then by the time you're towards the end of the month, Memorial Day and into June, you can start putting it into really like a daily kind of a stream. And one of the ways to push back against that sense of, oh my gosh, this is just so much of the same thing. There's a difference between that steady drip with a little creative twist. Mary Jo gave some really fun ideas of visuals that could be slightly different so that they might be seeing the same reminder, but in a slightly different way. But you also have this time that you can use to possibly put some things in the bank of your content, if you will. If you know a few different voices who are really good voices for you, or a couple of folks that are your poster child examples, take this time now, snap your photos, get a couple of these videos, get them done now so that you're not feeling the deadline pressure of, oh God, I have to do this by tomorrow. Get it in now and pre-schedule it so that it's already set and you're getting that information shared. Deborah, another thing that was asked out there, and this is really to Mary Jo's point, was about the imaging and the messaging and things that might get shared. So whether or not you should use your logo. I think that's really, and I'll let her take it over from here. That's Mary Jo's point, is there is some variety in some of this, that as long as you are incorporating your brand with their brand in a way that will get it clearly and simply shared, then do it in the way that is best for you as you see fit. These are recommendations and suggestions. And what we're finding is, in life, as we all know, everybody's going 40,000 miles an hour, and you don't necessarily pause to see something that might be a little bit difficult to interpret right out of the gate. You want to smack them in the face right away with happy, so that they understand right away what it is that they're looking at. I think that's really Mary Jo's point. But if you're brand and you're the kind of group that everything you push out gets shared, then sure, you want your logo in that. But Mary Jo, maybe you want to weigh in a little bit on pace, on timing, and on content.
Yeah, I love the faucet concept. I guess what I would say as I was perusing, and you all got varied levels of, I looked primarily at Facebook. You've got varied levels of audiences. Some had under 100 folks on Facebook, some had 15,000, 20,000. It was a real mix. Um, my hunch is that you're all under sharing. Okay. My hunch is that you're not, the frequency with which you are posting could be amped up. You can take your cues from when Kelly and Deborah decide to post on their socials. So that might be a great hint to you to see when they say we're X weeks out or two, especially as they get closer and you're amping it up. You can look at what they're doing as a clue. But keep in mind that the rule in advertising is that we don't notice something until we see it 7 times, that old joke. And we tire of our content long before our audience does. So you likely could be sharing more than you are, as long as your images and message are consistent and unified and sequenced and make sense together. So I also like to think of it as a drum roll as you're leading up to the curtain lift and the big event of the day. Obviously, frequency would increase then. I also think that I did notice one other thing, that the nonprofit's ability to use video over these years has increased. You're doing a great job with video. Continue to use video. Make sure you use the same principles we talk about in the video, what Scott's talking about being concise, what I'm talking about with co-branding. And I'd push on your tagging more. I think a lot of the nonprofits in the social world, this is an online event. Remember, it's an online event, and tagging should happen more. in particular, as you increase your frequency, maybe varying your tags as you increase the frequency and having, I call them super posts where you're tag heavy, but
I
Scott, I
would
guess.
also add to that, Mary Jo, we in the donor receipts that people get after they donate, there's a link for them to participate in a survey to give us some feedback. And we hear more often than anything else, I wish I'd known about it sooner. I wish I'd heard about it sooner. We don't usually hear anything like we heard about it too much. Although last year I did hear from a lot of people that said it is everywhere, but they were excited about it. They were like, it's everywhere. So get people excited about it, and I think like you said, Mary Jo, they can do more than they are now.
If I could just sort of finish this thought with one thing, so that people don't hate you, don't schedule these things so that at any point, and I mean even on the last day, don't do this pre-scheduled thing where you just do the same slate scheduled to post every hour on the hour for 24 straight hours. That will make people upset. That is crossing line is too much. Even if you've got creative slates in 6 different kinds, don't do that. That is an old and tired approach to social media that just alienates people. A little bit of creativity goes a long way. An early start is good, and a steady drip until we get to it, and then you're really starting to push it. And on the flip side of that, to Deborah's point, it really does help become a thing that everybody is joining and being a part of, when all of a sudden they really do see it as this cacophony from a number of different places and resources and people and places. That's when it becomes like okay, I'm a part of something bigger than me. This is cool. Oh my gosh, who else is doing something like this? That's the good side of pushing it out and having us all do it at once, but you don't need to do it hourly like you're a cuckoo clock.
Great. There was another question about if the colors and fonts were being made available, and that is actually a pretty huge oversight that I think it should probably be in the nonprofit toolkit to give people what those fonts are and the color values so that you can use them in your images. I apologize for never doing that before. It's one of those duh moments. And then there was a question on for their New Hampshire Gives profiles. Do you have any advice on how to frame what you're putting in those profiles? What images to use? What stories to tell? Is it different from what you've said about other things?
It feels like we should be using the principles that we talked about earlier, where Scott said to be concise, enthusiastic, clear, positive. And I'd say for imagery, you would also follow the same rules around imagery selection. People often, you've got to remember that people are seeing these images smaller. So we sometimes select an image and it's really big and then it shrinks and it's not as readable. So they can't be too dark and they really can't be too complicated. I would say just make sure the image itself it's just got 1 or 2 subjects in it. The background is a simple color. I don't know, Scott, any other thoughts?
No, I agree with that. And if there's a way to easily sort of finish with a link to your website, to that point and the question earlier, and send them someplace where you're particularly proud of whatever page that might tell your story. And if you're sitting here thinking to yourself, gosh, I don't know if I have that beyond the who we are, what we do, a couple of nice pictures, then maybe that's another part of your homework assignment in sharing your story more permanently beyond what this is, to make sure that you've got something you can push people to quickly and easily that really gets right to the heart of who it is. Because let's face it, this is a tug on the heartstring kind of an exercise in the grand scheme of things. We're celebrating all things nonprofit. We're doing it in one somewhat arbitrary date in June over this course of 2 days. It's wildly successful, and look what we've been able to do, but we're really just trying to pull the good feeling and good vibes out from the population. So know that that's what motivates, know that that's what's going to drive people, and make sure that you're connecting them to your story.
Great. Somebody mentioned matches. Sorry, Mary Jo, go ahead.
I just realized one thing. One thing we talked about when we were preparing for this is where emotion belongs in the pitches and the imagery and the ask. And in the nonprofit world, we all know marketing is a lot about emotion, right? That emotion plays a pivotal role in advertising in general. And we also know that in the nonprofit world, we are tugging at the heartstrings of the audience that we are trying to reach. But there's this fine line between uh, being enthusiastic and positive and happy, but you still want to be emotional. So it felt like the right time to interject that.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Somebody had asked about matches and when those were going to be announced. And I promise you, we don't sit on that information. It takes time to pull the matches together. And as soon as we have a number for you, we will be announcing it. And I have no idea what that's going to be this year. So anybody else want to raise their hand with a question? If I missed something that was in the chat, let me know.
You know, as we're waiting for a question, I also want to say the quality of the videos. I hope everyone who's on this call submits a video to New Hampshire Gives. The pre-made videos that are submitted are incredible. They've improved dramatically over the years, and you're just doing amazing work. It's a great opportunity to practice the principles that we're talking about here today. So,
And if you all jump in the chat real quick, Kelly has done 2 quick posts. One is the Guide to Giving Day Profile Best Practices, and the other is advice for securing your own matches. If you, while we're still on this call, if you just want to click on that so it's open on your computer and you can check that out, that might help you shortcut some of this, some of these tips and information. But you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't just pause for a second and thank all of you for what you do on behalf of New Hampshire, for families, for communities. You know, you are the heartbeat of our Granite State, and I know that may sound a little bit corny, but it's the truth. It's one of my all-time favorite things about this state, and it's one of the things that I love about doing this little project is that this is tying people together in a wonderful way that sort of you know, despite all of the terrible things that we see on the news every night, despite all of the negativity that we tend to run into, despite the sheer exhaustion we all have from 2 years of COVID and having to just survive, this is one of those things that I think we can turn to one another and be able to celebrate about what's truly special and unique about this state. And it's because of each one of you. And I'm quite confident none of you hear it enough, but thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. And Mary Jo and Deborah and Kelly and I sincerely hope this has been a good time investment for you and that you feel like you've got some ideas and a little wind behind your back to get into your sales, to cover some ground without it feeling like a massive, terrible homework assignment. So, I mean, this has been great. We really appreciate you.
Robin, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you have a question?
Hi, yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mary Jo and Scott. And thanks for the shout outs. That was great too. I just had a question. We're thinking about changing it up a little bit this year and doing almost a sub-programming into New Hampshire Gives and creating a kind of an event out of it, a theatrical event of sorts. Although I'm a little nervous, it could start to construe the message of what the organization does, really. Kind of, we're thinking about creating it into kind of a comedy routine of sorts with a couple of like special guests. But that's not necessarily strictly our programming. It would be something different. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts about confusing the message, really, versus trying to gain marketing and publicity traction?
I will say, knowing you and your work, my instinct is that it would be a plus because you're already cautious about confusing the message. And my hunch is it would attract more eyeballs and give you, when that curtain lift happens, give you more content to share. So as long as you reinforce your message consistently, I think sounds like a good idea to me. Scott, or Deborah, did you have any? Yeah.
I agree, especially Robin, especially considering the examples that we were all able to see of what y'all were able to do with your messaging and marketing, if you will. You have a great eye, you have great taste and touch, and I think that if you're looking to do something slightly different that incorporates what you do, I love the idea. I also like the idea of trying to do something that might bring a smile or even a chuckle to people's face. A little bit of, a little bit of humor goes a long way. And the only thing that I would warn is just be careful with funny. We all like to think we're funny, and not all of us are. So just be careful with your sense of humor. But otherwise, I love that. I love the idea of exploring, because this is a good thing. It's a giant fundraiser, and it's a show and tell exercise moment. So you can be playful with it and a little bit self-deprecating, or a little bit like, really, green and yellow again? Why do we have to do green? Something that's just, all right, fine, poking fun at New Hampshire Gives, but having some fun with it. It's totally fine. And I think at this point now, we probably know enough about the sort of the boundaries and the four corners of good taste versus maybe a little too edgy, that you can trust your gut.
All right. Thank you both very much.
Any other questions? I'm going to put out there that our next webinar is on the 24th of this month, and it is a New Hampshire Gives 101, but we'll also be going over what's new this year. And what I'm going to do for those of you who are veterans, I'm going to put the what's new at the beginning, so that if you want to just jump on, hear what's new, and then like when we do go over how to set up your profile and some of the basic stuff, you can check out if you want to, or you can stay on and give your thoughts to some of these newer people. And then we do have 2 more webinars in April, on the 6th and the 20th, and those will be on matches and peer-to-peer fundraising, respectively. So I hope to see everybody there. One of the things that is new this year that I just want people to start thinking about is, if you've been on the site, you may have noticed at the top there's something about e-cards. And e-cards is a new feature that GiveGab has rolled out. And what it is you can purchase an e-card and gift it to somebody so that they can then donate to the organization of their choice, which is just an interesting way to introduce people to New Hampshire Gives if they're not familiar with it. I think it's going to be great, for parents to say to their kids, Kelly has a daughter who loves New Hampshire Gives, to be able to say, okay, here's your gift card. You can go and use this on whatever organization you want to give to. So employers could purchase them for their employees to give. There's a lot of different ways that that we can promote them. So those are out there. And there's swag this year. There is a New Hampshire Gives store where you can purchase your very own New Hampshire Gives t-shirt, bumper sticker, stickers to give out to your peer-to-peer fundraisers or your top supporters, just thank you gifts. I know some of you have some really amazing peer-to-peer fundraisers and are looking for ways to say thank you to them. So that's one idea. All right, I don't see any more questions. Kelly, did I miss any?
Sorry, I'm just typing stuff in the chat here. I don't believe so.
I didn't see any new ones.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to add that, and I think that I hope that the entire tone of this webinar has reflected this. But for those of you that are new to New Hampshire Gives, we sometimes get the feedback from people that are first participating that that there are elements of this that feel competitive between nonprofits, and I hope that the message here has been crystal clear that it really is the type of initiative that lifts the entire nonprofit community. And we see that time and time again. Deborah mentioned earlier, nonprofits being so willing to share resources, share what they've done, just being so generous with their own successful experiences. And that is what makes, working on this project basically my favorite thing that I get to do in my job. So I just hope that has kind of come through.
I would second that, definitely. All right, well, thank you, Mary Jo and Scott. I learned things today. I hope everybody else did. It was a pleasure having you both here and hearing from you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Have a few minutes of your day back, and hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar.